I also believe he is a West Liberty grad. Okay, Jared, it's all yours.
All right, thank you so much. And give me 1 second here. I'm gonna set up so I can share. And okay, hopefully everybody can see my screen, right? Awesome, good deal. So yeah, I am Jared Thompson. I'm going to be going through, I changed the name of my title just a little bit because I thought it'd be fun, but we're going to talk about creating engaging videos for learning, but in all honesty, we're going to talk about making videos that don't suck. And you've probably seen a lot of video content out there that's hard to watch, things that bother you about it. We're going to go through some of those things today. So let's see. There we go. So yeah, I am the creative video director here at West Liberty. I am an alum, proud alum of West Lib. I graduated in 2009 with my bachelor's in digital media design, and then I did a master's in education technology here in 2013, and I also completed an MFA in film from Vermont College of Fine Arts. And this is like the only skill I think I have is just making videos and stuff. So hopefully you'll be able to get some kind of good content from me today. So some of the things that we're going to cover, we're going to talk about some best practices for video production, things that you can do very easily or cost effectively or free even to help improve the quality of videos that you might want to make for your classroom or for your online class. We'll talk a little bit about some strategies for developing your content, some best practices for editing. And I'm actually going to go through a couple different types of editing software with you and just kind of show you the basics of what you can do with that. And then I have a lot of helpful resources that hopefully will be beneficial for you to help create content in the future. So we'll jump right into it. Since we're getting to start a little early, that's awesome. It'll give me a few more minutes. I'm excited about that. So when you're getting started on making any type of video, even if it's going to be something you're only going to use online or it's going to be something that you want to show in class, I always tell when I'm working with my students, I always say, figure out your content first. And we'll talk about some storyboarding and planning and that sort of thing. So content's going to be the main part that you want to figure out exactly what you want to cover, because that's going to kind of determine what you're going to need to actually put your video together. And so the second thing would be some kind of camera or recording device. I'm going to assume everybody has a smartphone. Like the only faculty member I think I know here that does not have a smartphone is Chris Lee, who teaches broadcasting. Actually, no, I think he finally did get one like a year ago. But you know, you can use your phone to create just about anything that you want to. You don't have to spend money on an expensive camera or anything like that. And so you can also use, oh, my mic fell over. I'm so sorry. You can also use like a DSLR camera. Some people might have one of these. It's kind of your typical, like this one's a typical soccer mom camera, as I like to call them. But you know, you can record on this if you want to. You just have to make sure that you have like the lens and everything set up. There are auto modes on these that work really well. You can use an iPad, some kind of, you know, tablet like that. If you have a traditional video camera, I know there are still some of those out there that would work too. But again, you just want to think about what you have available to you. You don't have to spend a lot of money and buy something expensive. Even, you know, something as simple as a webcam, like what I'm using right now, that the school gave me, just a cheap little, you know, $40, $50 webcam will work just fine too. You also want to think about some other elements of this, like lighting. We're going to go through that. And we're going to talk about some sound considerations, things to think about in the environment that you're in. And again, that planning and storyboarding is going to be really important. All right. So some of these best practices, we'll talk about the planning aspect first. So I encourage everyone to create some kind of storyboard or script ahead of time. So, you know, whatever you're teaching, whatever concept I see on the list that I saw earlier, we have folks from like biology, dental hygiene, creative arts therapy. A lot of different areas are represented today, business. And so you technically can create a video for, you know, any of your disciplines that you're teaching in, but you want to think about what you're going to need to do that. So for instance, I saw Professor Petrella from dental hygiene on here. So if you're working on something, and we had talked before about making some like videos for dental hygiene and like some of the practices that, you know, using the tools and stuff, you would want to think about where you would want to set up, what kind of shots you're going to need, how you're going to put all this together. Think about your target length. A lot of times long videos will tend to lose people's attention. People have really short attention spans right now, especially with today's social media and like TikTok. I mean, TikTok, you can swipe through stuff so quickly until you find something that you want. It's like a half a second that people have to be engaged with on it. So you want to think about how you're going to capture your audience's attention right off the bat. And again, if it's a student, they're kind of a captive audience because they're stuck watching it if they want to, complete the assignment or whatever. But again, you want to try to make it as interesting and engaging for them as possible. So we'll talk about some stuff with that a little later on. But the big thing is being you, but also following all of these different production techniques that I'm going to talk about. So after you kind of have your script put together, you know what you want to say in this, you want to think about what kind of B-roll you're going to need. And B-roll is just that second, like the secondary footage other than what you're, shooting with you on camera or whatever your subject is. So for instance, again, for like dental hygiene, you might want B-roll close-ups of working with the tools, putting, having a subject there working in their mouth, maybe showing, different ways that you handle them and that sort of thing. So you want to kind of think about all these different shots that you're going to need. So that way you can kind of shoot everything at once and you don't have to keep going back and resetting up and redoing things over and over. So I'm a firm believer. I like to shoot things once and then move on. And then you kind of have to determine what you want to be voiced over and what you want to be on camera. On camera, I mean, kind of like I am right now. I'm speaking to you directly on camera. But if you have enough B-roll, you can just use a lot of voiceovers, which kind of make things a little bit easier because then you don't have to worry about getting through everything in one take. You can stop and restart as much as you want to if you have a lot of B-roll. And so for those of you that I've worked on projects with before, you've probably noticed me say like, hey, let's restart this or something. That's because I want to make sure I get like B-roll that goes along with what you're talking about. So I want you to kind of think right now, since we're on the webinar version, I'm just going to do these little check-ins throughout, but kind of think to yourself, maybe make a couple notes to yourself if it's beneficial to you. But what kind of gear do you have access to right now? What's going to work best for you to be able to capture the videos that you want to capture and create? And so again, like I said, the phone's probably going to be your go-to, but start thinking about this stuff. What do you have access to? Think about what questions you have about using your camera gear, because it's knowing how to use that and being confident in how you're using even just your phone can make a big difference as to the outcome of your videos. So if there's things that you don't know about whatever gear you have available to you, like your phone or a camera, then start off by researching that. You're welcome to ask me questions at any point. I'm always here as a resource for you all. But you can also Google things. I mean, there's a ton of YouTube videos out there for everything. Anytime I'm unsure about something, that's usually where I turn to, is to look at what's out there already that somebody has had a question about and they've made a video to explain it. So just a couple things to keep in mind. So moving on, we want to think about lighting as one of our other main elements for shooting a video. And so I have some images that I've captured here beforehand of best practices for lighting. And so the more light you have, the clearer the image you're going to have. And I know it might sound obvious, but sometimes we don't really think about that. And you really have to think about the lighting in your room. It can be things as it could be like the overhead lights, whatever, actual lighting is there. It could be windows. It could be the color of your walls, and it could be the background behind you. That'll determine how well light reflects. And I've seen some people do videos where they have like that 70s dark paneling in the background and, some kind of like dark hanging ceiling or something. And it's dingy and dark, and that's kind of hard to pay attention to. So something that's more bright and well lit will be a lot easier for your students to pay attention to. And again, it'll just be a clearer image that they can follow. So to help achieve this, obviously you can use you could get lights to bring in. So for example, I have right now, you can't see it because it's behind my camera, but I have this little ring light set up. And I'm going to actually provide a link for this one. This one was only $30. This was on Amazon, and I'll show that to you here in a little bit. But ring lights are not very expensive. This is a little 12-inch one, and The nice thing about ring lights like this is that they are very omnidirectional and soft. So that means that they're not going to be a harsh light that's just directly on you. It's going to kind of, it's not going to create a lot of shadows. It's going to just kind of spread evenly and light you up really good. And you'll notice with this one too, in the center of that ring light, there's actually a little mount that you can mount your phone on. So if you decide that you want to use your phone to record, then you can use, you set your phone up directly in that mount, and it makes things really easy for you. You could also connect in that same ring light. You could put a DSLR camera, like one of these, or any camera that has the little 1/4-inch mounting shoe on the bottom, which is pretty standard. So it's a very versatile piece of equipment to have. And again, it's nice for doing videos like this. If you want to take some pictures of your kids or pets or something, it's nice to have a ring light around for that too. Another way that you can actually achieve without buying anything is you could just use window light. Now we're going to talk about some of that here in a second. You don't want the window behind you, but if you would face yourself against the window and have the camera like by the window, so that way the light coming through the window lights you, that's going to be a nice soft even light to use too. Sometimes that's a little bit harder. You got to take into considerations about really harsh sun coming through. Cloudy days are always best for that because the light, again, is softer and more balanced. So some things to avoid for lighting. There's my goofy face. You want to avoid that harsh light like I talked about. Overhead fluorescents are just awful usually for video. And unfortunately, that's what we have in a majority of the classrooms and offices and different places on campus. But the overhead fluorescents can really wash things out and create a lot of hot spots. So it's best if you can turn the lights off. Like for instance, in my office right now, I never use my fluorescent light. I just don't like it. So I have it off, and usually I just have a lamp on over in the corner. And again, like I said, for Zoom and stuff, I have this ring light in here, which is really nice. But the other thing to be cautious of is backlighting. And so backlighting could be either excessive backlighting or not enough backlighting. So for instance, like between these two images here, the window behind me creates a really harsh backlight, and it actually causes the camera, if it's on an auto feature like it was right here, it causes the camera to try to balance that light between what's behind me and what's in front of me. And because there's so much more light behind me, it's going to actually darken myself out. So you don't see me, your subject's not going to be lit as well. But if you close the blinds like I did in that lower picture, then your camera kind of, and that's actually with no light on or anything else. It's just literally me in my office with the blind shut. Same scenario. I show up a lot better. So if you are going to shoot something in front of a window, if you have no other choice to do that, make sure that you do close up the blinds behind you. And I think most offices probably have blinds. Classrooms, I don't know if all of them do or not. So another consideration is sound. And I always tell my students that sound will make or break a video. I've watched a lot of things that have really poor sound that were actually pretty interesting topics, or they were, shot pretty decently, but the sound in them was just horrible and I couldn't follow along with it. So you want to invest in some kind of microphone. This is somewhere where you probably will have to spend just a little bit of money if you do want to work on making videos for your class. But the good thing is they're not that expensive. So you could get something simple like a USB mic for your computer. And in the image, the top image I have on the screen there, I'll show you the link for that one too. I bought that off Amazon for 30 bucks. That's what I'm using right now and talking to you through. It does the job. I mean, for 30 bucks, I'm really pleased with the quality of it, but you can kind of see it there in the image. And I have actually the Amazon link up behind it just to kind of show it to you. But again, I'll send you a link for that when we're all done with this as well. But any USB mic will really work. You could get something, that sits on a desktop like this. You could get a little lavalier mic that you can clip onto your shirt or whatever to use. But if you're using some kind of DSLR camera, like I showed you earlier, then you might want to get some kind of shotgun mic to go on the top of that, or you could use a lavalier mic. You do want to make sure that your camera supports adding sound to it. So like this is the camera you've probably seen me run around campus with. And this is a shotgun mic with a nice fluffy dead cat on it to help absorb some of the wind and like HVAC sounds. So again, you just want to be you want to make sure that your equipment's all going to work together the way you want it to. Another setup that I have in my office, if you've ever been to my office, you've probably seen this in here, but in that lower corner, I have a really nice setup to do like voiceover stuff with. And it's actually, that was only like a couple $100, like for the entire, the set to connect to the computer, like the interface and then the mic and the back panel and everything. So it's really not that outrageously priced for a lot of this stuff. You don't have to spend thousands of dollars to get decent quality equipment to do what you want. The other thing I would suggest is just make sure that you are recording in a quiet space with soft edges. Like in my office right now, there's actually just sharp corners. You know, it's basically like a dorm. It was a dorm room. Shaw Hall was a dorm a long time ago. And so it's a very square room. There's hard edges. But I have like this tack board thing over here, a cork board that helps absorb a lot of sound. I have a futon at the other side, and it's actually kind of strategic because that helps to absorb some of that sound so you don't get echoes, you don't have those hard edges. But you know, you can hang up curtains, you could hang up blankets around you or something to help create those soft edges so that way your sound is better. And kind of going along with getting decent sound and how you can set that up, you want to think about your environment. Avoid cluttered spaces because typically, you know, the background will be distracting to students. So you want to use something that's going to be really simple in your background. For me right now, yeah, I've got a couple of my diplomas hanging behind me. There's not a whole lot going on. There's more than what probably should be, but at least it's not like a ton of stuff that's going to be real distracting, I don't think. Always turn off the AC or the furnace or, you know, whatever you have running in your house, because any of those kinds of noises, you might not really hear that, but a lot of the microphones that are on these digital devices will pick up a lot of that noise, and it'll be kind of like a little hum sound or a droning sound. You can take some of that out whenever you're editing in better editing software, but typically it's just easier if you have that shut off to start with. So, you know, when I have students come in here to do voiceover work or whatever, I always shut off the air in my office so that way I don't pick it up. So also consider these, consider like sound and lighting constraints that you might have. Children can be very loud sometimes. So, you know, think about where you are in your house opposed to where, you know, your children might be or other people in the house. Pets can be distracting and make noise. I've seen several videos of people who they have dogs, you know, are barking somewhere else, and it's kind of distracting a little bit. Traffic can also be really distracting. So if you are set up right beside a busy roadway, you know, keep your window shut, make sure it's sealed up, maybe position yourself on the other side of your house or wherever you are if you're making these to avoid this traffic sounds. And kind of going on with this, you guys have probably seen this. I don't think I routed the sound for this, but we don't really need the sound. But you've probably seen this video back during the pandemic when the kids come into the room. I don't think I have the sound routed, so I apologize for that. But my favorite part is when this kid comes in this thing. And then the wife comes in and tries to save the day. So it's just really distracting sometimes, and that can happen. And the good thing is if you're making this for, you know, some other purpose that you're going to edit, it's not like a live thing. The good thing is you can go through and redo and edit that out. But just keep that in mind, so it's less work for you to have to do later. So another thing I want to mention is just staging and composition. And one of the big things that we learn about in this field is the 2/3 or the rule of thirds, 2/3 rule of composition. So I kind of have a little image set up here that you can see how this is laid out. So if you look at this image, myself, occupies like a 2/3 section of the screen. So whenever you're recording, if you're setting up to record yourself or to record somebody else, you want to try to frame it so that it's that 2/3 kind of look. And typically you'll see this a lot where the camera's kind of set up here and your subject that's speaking might be looking this way. So it's kind of a little bit of a profile view. But that's just a general rule for composition for any type of photography or videography. You can set stuff up, centered, dead on center if you want to do that. But you want to be cautious that you don't have, and I'm sure you've seen this, where the camera, I'm going to try to position myself on camera, where you're down low and there's a ton of headroom, or maybe you're up real high and it's cutting the head off a little bit. So you want to make sure that you do have yourself, no matter what type of device you're recording on, you have yourself set up properly in the frame. So to do this, it could help to have a buddy to have around to help you with that. If you're using your cell phone, of course, you could always turn on the front camera and record that direction. Some cameras will have flip out screens that you make it easier for yourself. But if you have some around to help you do that, that's always good too. And then you want to think about the camera placement. You want to try to avoid awkward angles. Usually something that's going to be kind of, level with your face will be good. Really low angles can be very unflattering. And I'm sure you're probably aware of that. So, but keep that in mind whenever you're recording, because the worst thing you could do is record yourself at a really low angle and go back and watch it later and be like, oh, this is bad, I have to redo it. Then you have to take time to go back and redo the whole thing. So if you're just very cautious of this beforehand, hopefully it all works out and you can, you can have it all done right the first time. Also avoid really high angles, especially of people, just because it just looks off on camera and it can be hard to pay attention to. And again, like eye contact, I didn't put this on here, but eye contact is a really big thing. And I guess it goes with reading from a script. You do want to be careful that you're not reading the whole time from some type of script. Whether if you do want to read something, if you have like a webcam set up, you can set up, to have it on screen that you can kind of scroll through it and try to keep what you're reading near the top of the screen. There are different things out there, prompter systems that you can get to hook up onto a DSLR camera. There's prompters you can get to put on your phone that you can have your camera rolling and you can prompt it on your phone and hook up a little Bluetooth connected remote to it. I haven't used any of those personally, and I feel like some of them are probably not the best just because they're so cheap. I know a lot of prompter systems that I've tried just for cameras that have been low end haven't really worked the best to start with. So avoid reading as much as you can, make that eye contact with the camera as much as you can. But also it does help to be more authentic if you are just directly talking to the camera and not reading. So another check-in point here real quick. So think about what you might have access to. What can you use in your own settings, in your own office, your own home, wherever you might be, to improvise on lighting. So think about lamps that you might have, any type of lights that you might have. Maybe you want to order a ring light and have that. And think about how you can improvise on setting up your camera in places that might work well for you at your home. And again, it can be something as simple as buying or just taking a sheet that you might have and putting some kind of sheet or something up on a wall behind you so you don't have a busy background. But also think about how you're going to set your camera. When I was showing you the ring light in that photo a little bit ago, it's got a spot on it like I showed you for a phone, but sometimes you might not always have that. Now there are little tripods you can order for your phone that'll pop up, like 6 feet high. There's obviously tripods for like DSLR cameras that you can use, but that all costs money. So if you're trying to do this on a budget, you're trying to save some money, one thing you can do is you could always use like a stool and stack some books up on it. I've done this at Christmas time to take family photos, like self-family photos, where I'll just take a stool and put like a couple boxes or some books up on it and then set my phone back against the back of the stool. So that way it sets up and I can use that as like a way to hold the phone up, prop the phone up, and take the picture. So you could do the same thing for this, whatever you have access to, that's the thing. Figuring out what is available to you, how you can make this work. There's really no wrong way to do it, as long as you get the right image that you want from it. If you can't tell, I like to do stuff as like cheap or as free as I can. So talking a little bit more about content, this is so all of these elements we've talked about so far, lighting, sound, environment, those are all really specific production aspects. But when it comes down to it, the thing that's actually going to make this video engaging for your students is you. You know, a lot of times students take classes because of a professor. If they have, you know, the option to take, they might take the class specifically for you. And so they want to see you, whether it's in the classroom or if it's online, they want the energy that you bring. And this is something as an adjunct faculty member myself that I've kind of come to realize is like, students just want you to be you. Even if it's on video, they want to see who you are. So be energetic. I think that's most important. Smile and be positive. A lot of times videos will get made, and I've seen several faculty videos, not necessarily here, but just in general, where it's just so dry and there's no enthusiasm and it's very monotone. And that's really, really hard to pay attention to. I mean, as a faculty member yourself, you probably wouldn't want to watch that. And hopefully I'm not being too monotone here and I'm being energetic enough for you to keep your interest. But smile and be positive. Smiles can be, I always tell my students when I'm teaching, especially COM 101, public speaking, I'm always telling them that smiles can be contagious. So if you notice that your audience isn't smiling, sometimes if you start smiling, it'll make your audience smile too while you're speaking. So think about that as you're making these videos. You want to make sure that you're smiling to your audience. Eye contact, like I mentioned, is important. But again, be you, like be the authentic version of yourself that you are. Just like if you're in the classroom, if you're in front of kids or in front of an audience, imagine that you're still in front of the audience when you're on the camera. And then another important thing is to avoid the weeds. Don't get into like all these little details that aren't important. Sometimes, you know, we talked about the length of videos. Sometimes people will start going on and on and on and get into all these details and get sidetracked, and you're going to lose your audience with that. So with a video, obviously you have the power to cut that out later, but you're wasting your time if you record it from the start anyway. So try to avoid the weeds, avoid those details that might not be relevant for the purpose of the video. And then think about your language. And one of the big things is to slow down. A lot of times people get really nervous when there's a camera on them, whether it be a webcam, or even if you know you're recording yourself on your phone or, you know, some other camera system. There's going to be an element of nerves that plays into that. Like cameras always make people more nervous. And so I know I've worked with several of you on some videos in the past, and you've told me like, oh, I get nervous in front of the camera, and that's completely normal. Everyone does. I get nervous in front of the camera. I actually hate this right now because there's a camera on me. But typically whenever we're nervous, we start speaking really fast. So you might need to remind yourself while you're presenting whatever content you're presenting, just slow down a little bit. And again, practice ahead of time to help with that. Like we said, avoid reading. Make sure that you are articulating really well. You're enunciating on certain phrases and words that you need to. And again, just imagine that your classroom is behind that camera. You're actually presenting to your class like you would be any other time. And a lot of it's going to depend on the, you know, how long of a video. I mean, if you're making a video that's a full 50-minute lecture, there's going to be some different things that you're going to take into consideration as compared to maybe just like a 3 to 5 minute demo video of how to do maybe a lab or how to do a certain assignment, something along those lines. Something else to keep in mind about making the video interesting is to add some graphical elements. And you can use different graphics or images to help illustrate points, and you can create your own. I'm going to give you a link here in a little bit to help you find some stock footage or stock imagery that you can use. But even graphic elements such as like what I have on the PowerPoint screen right now with, you know, the words on screen, use those to help illustrate points to make it interesting. You could pre-build stuff in like Photoshop and export it as a JPEG and bring it into your editing software. We'll look at that here in a little bit. Or you can create your own graphics in the software as well. I always encourage people to follow the 6x8 rule. And I encourage my students when I'm teaching COM 101, whenever they are creating visual elements to use in their speaking, to follow the 6x8 rule. And that is no more than, typically you want to try to not use more than 6 lines with 8 words per line of text. And that's other than the header. So that would be like the body. So if you get too many words on screen, People are going to be reading and focused on that and not focused on what you're saying. And the other thing that you really don't want to do is you don't want to just like put a whole bunch of stuff on screen and read it to everybody the whole time. So you should be varying, just to use bullet points, just like you would in any class that you're doing. Doing a video lecture is no different. But again, vary your imagery, try to use some images on some, you might use like GIFs or little videos on some parts of it. But just be mindful that whatever you're using content wise that you are using legally, always, give credit where credit's due for things. Even, if you're pulling something from online, typically you should try to find where it's from, and you should give the credit to where that's being pulled from. There is some software that's really good for this. That I'm going to jump down here just one spot real quick, but OBS is a app or a piece of software that you can install on your desktop device or desktop computer. There's screen recording software. I don't know if OBS makes a mobile app or not, but obviously there's screen recording software and capturing software you can use on a mobile device as well to pull stuff. But if you want to record something, so like, if you want to record a video off of YouTube, then this OBS software is really simple to use. I use it all the time in here if I need to record some kind of clip from something that's online. But you want to try to look for royalty-free or something that provides Creative Commons open source usage. And I'm going to give you a list of that kind of stuff here too in just a little bit for like music, because music's always really hard to find something that you actually are able to use for free. There are a lot of, well, not a lot, there's several places out there that have those royalty-free pieces of music on their websites. There's libraries that you can license for a small fee. Sometimes you can just license a piece of music for a small fee. But typically, I imagine a lot of you are going to be working on your own budget for this, and you're probably going to try to pull stuff that won't cost you. So look for those things. I am going to give you some links for that too here in just a little bit. If you need to just grab like an image of something, using that snipping tool on the Windows machine is great. On a Mac, I don't use a Mac. I don't know how many of you guys use Macs, but I know there's easy ways to like capture screenshots there. Obviously on your phone or mobile device, there's really easy ways to do that as well. All right, everyone's still with me? How am I doing on time? Oh, good, we're perfect. Okay, so check in real quick. Think about what holds your attention in a video. What do you want to try to do to help to create your own videos that will hold attention for your students? What are your students going to find engaging? And think about your personality strengths. What do your students like about you in class? Use that to your advantage and use that in your videos. And think about some of your weaknesses that you have when you're on camera, and how are you going to overcome these? And again, I'm happy to serve as a resource for you however I can on, fixing anything that you need help with. So let's keep moving ahead here. Talking about editing now. So after you've captured all of your elements, you need to start putting this together in the editing process. The first step is to gather all of your assets. So all the footage you've created or you've recorded, any type of graphical elements that you're going to need, any imagery that you're going to need to throw in, music, any voiceovers that you're going to want to throw in, the B-roll, all of that kind of stuff comes into play here. So you want to make sure you have all of that gathered up so that way you can just start editing right away. And the screenshot that I have on screen here is actually from Adobe Premiere. So that's a video editing system. That's what is kind of common in the industry, and that's what I use here. And we'll take a look at that too. But once you get all this put together, you want to create your product. And so this is something that I have recently kind of started telling and thinking more about, but I always encourage my students to think creatively, but also to create thoughtfully. So when you're putting this together, when you're editing, everything should have intention and purpose. And so, when you're putting your elements into the editing software, make sure you're putting in what you really want to put in, and that put things in there are going to add a lot of value to your overall video. So there are a lot of different types of editing software out there. Of course, Adobe Premiere, like I mentioned, that's it costs money, but you can do educational licensing through the school. So maybe, you know, through your department, you could set that up. I have, obviously through work, I have access to it, but then I have a version at home. And because I do have a .edu email address, as long as you have a .edu email address, you can get the educational discount on it. And so I use that at home as well. OpenShot is another, it's a free software that's out there, and I'm going to show you a little bit in that one today. DaVinci Resolve is one that's been popular. It's got a little bit of a learning curve, but they've done an update to it and it's not running like it used to. There's stuff that's different. I don't like it anymore. So there's a free version and paid version of it. And I think what they're trying to do is just move to where everybody wants to do the paid version. If you have a Apple machine, you can use iMovie. There's also for Windows, Windows Video Editor. It's actually located, I put a screenshot of Windows Video Editor on here. It's in the Photos app. It's not its own standalone app now. But if you go to Photos and then click on, I don't know if my mouse will show up, but there's video editors right there kind of in the middle of the top bar. And that's how you get to it. And you can start putting video together that way. Lightworks is another free software that's out there that's okay. There's a lot of other ones that I didn't list on here. You might find something that you like and works for you, but these are ones that I've experienced a little bit and that I know function okay for the most part. So before I jump out of here and go to the editing software, these are those helpful resources. And Donna or Dr. Madera, we'll find a way. I could copy and paste these maybe and put them in the chat so that way people can access. But the link for the USB mic is on there. The ring light that I have, again, those were like $30 or something on Amazon each, so not too bad. OpenShot, I'm sorry?
No, I was just going to say, Jared, we'll share if we're going to gather the presentations from the presenters. And when we post the videos of the presentations online, we can also post the presentation so they can just go in and click on the link and go to the resource.
Perfect. That's great. Yep. So yeah, I have a link for like downloading the OpenShot software. Obviously, Adobe, you have to pay for that. I didn't put that link on here, but that's pretty easy to find. Pexels is a great location. It's a open source image and video sharing platform. And I pull a lot of imagery from there whenever I don't have my own imagery that I need for something. And then there's, again, some of those music sites that I mentioned that have royalty-free options for you. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing for just a second and switch over to my software. So the first thing I'm going to show you is this OpenShot. And let me see where it's set up on here. Okay, this should get to it. I'm going to share sound on this too. Okay, so hopefully you're able to see the OpenShot software. So if you download this, this is like the most basic video editing software that you could probably find. And again, like I said, this one is free. So that's the nice part about it. Now, it's not the most intuitive software ever because it is free. So you're not going to get all the features that you're going to get. Like I said, I'll show you a little bit in Adobe Premiere also. But I'm going to just kind of run through the basics of what you can do with this, such as setting up a project, importing all your assets that you need, doing some cutting, some continuity work, adding some graphical elements, and then exporting things. So anytime that you are looking at video editing software, you're going to have basically the same components built in it. So let me see, actually, there we go. You guys still just see that screen, right? I completely lost my Zoom window. I don't know where we went. That's okay though. But this is going to be the project bin in this software. So this is where you're going to bring all of your items into. Down here is a timeline where you're going to be able to actually put some stuff together, and you can expand that to show more tracks. They're all down here. And then this is going to be the program window where you'll actually be able to preview what the final product's going to look like. So on this software, and again, this isn't something I don't use as much, so I'm just going to kind of go through it quick. And if you play around with it, you'll get really used to it. I've tried to get used to it, but I'm so used to Premiere that it's a little bit harder. So I'm just going to bring in this folder of waterfall footage. I actually have to click each item. So let's just bring all these in. I don't know if any of you guys have been to Tucker County, West Virginia, but it's one of my favorite places ever. And there's some beautiful waterfalls there, including Blackwater Falls is down there. But I have some footage from around Tucker County from a recent project I was working on. And I'm just going to use that for an example today. There's also Douglas Falls, one of my other favorite areas in Tucker County. Okay, so when you have your footage imported, it's all going to show up here. These little clips. And if you click and drag a piece down to your timeline, you can start editing it. Now, this is a timeline-based editor. So there's not like a preview window that I'll show you in Premiere. It's a little bit nicer. So you're going to edit everything down here. So if I lay this down on one of these tracks, it doesn't really matter where at this point. The tracks do have a hierarchy though, as far as what shows over top of what, which I'll show you in a second. But if I play this, you can see, and I just have some random sound behind it. There's me driving, or I'm not driving, someone else is driving. I'm shooting out the window. Okay, so if we want to shorten that a little bit, all we do is position our cursor to the edge, and it's really easy to go through and shorten a clip and adjust it. So you could do it from either side. And then if you grab another one, I'm going to throw this down here. I think this one's a slow-mo video too that I did on my phone. Yeah, that one's a slow-mo. I'm not going to use that one. If you put something down you want, you can delete it out. So here's another clip. This is Douglas Falls. So just something simple. So again, if I want to take a little bit off the front and back end of that, I can, and then I can snap those together. Oops, pushed it too far there, I think. See, I told you this footage or the software is a little iffy sometimes, but it works. So let's say I don't want that audio that's with it. On this one, you can separate the audio. So I'm going to separate the audio out of both of these. And I'm going to take the audio completely out. So I'm going to click on it and delete it. So now if I play it, there's no audio. There it goes. And I could take and put in my own. If I was going to record a voiceover, I could record a voiceover and put it in and put that audio in. I think I saw a question pop up. I can answer it now. So Carol asked, I'm sorry I missed it. How did you get the clips on top before you pull them down to the tracks? Okay, good question. And again, feel free to pause anytime that you need me to, or ask any questions throughout here. So to import, you can right click and hit import, or you can go file, import. I think in the software you can also click and drag. So if you have a browser window, like a media browser open on your desktop, you can just click and drag those clips in. But yeah, good question. So you right click and import. And again, I'm so used to going through this quick. Sometimes I forget some of those details too. So thank you for noting that. So that's just kind of a quick way. Let me grab another piece of footage. Here's a drone shot of Blackwater. So let's see, here's so this is called scrubbing, where I scrub through to find whatever part I want to use. Maybe I kind of want to start where I start dropping down a little bit. I'm going to play that. Now this clip has no audio associated with it because the drone does not record audio. So let's say that's good enough for what I want. And then I could just snap that over too. So pretty simple. This will just switch between video. We don't have any audio or images in here yet, but those would show up if that's how you can separate those. So let's say that, I don't know if I have any audio. I should have recorded some audio beforehand and I didn't. I'm trying to think real quick if I have something that might really work audio wise. Let me just grab some music and bring in. I know I have some stuff in. Let me go to one of my. All right, so this is some music that I've licensed for another project, but we're just going to use it here. So let's say we want to use this music. And again, so right now I'm not at the beginning of this. So if I want all this to start at the beginning, I would pull it all over. But maybe I want to put a little text graphic in here. So we can do that here in a moment. So we want this music to start. There we go. Maybe I want this to be a little faster. I'm like, you know what, that's taking too long. I'm just going to bounce that down a bit. There it goes. Beautiful, right? This is great. All right. And by the way, so this does act as a hierarchy, like I said. So if we want to, let me see what is, let me take this clip and throw it on this track. So if I end up throwing this clip on this track up above, notice what happens when I play. It's going to overwrite it because the hierarchy of the tracks means that the clips on the tracks above are going to show up over the clips below. So you either want to make sure that you're building this out the way you want that way, or you know, that you're not overwriting something. And again, if you throw this down over top here, it's going to show you that you've overwritten a little bit. And you can add a transition into that if you want, but so you can see how it's showing that it's actually kind of overwriting that little bit. So I'm going to undo that for a second. And I'm going to take that audio off of this clip because I don't want it on there. And I could take that off just by hitting delete. Okay, but maybe you want to do some kind of transition between them. So transitions in this software are again, with the better software like Adobe that I'll show you here in just a second, it's a little bit easier to do and better. It's better equipped for stuff like this. So let's say we just want to do like fade because that's nice and simple. So these, I believe in this, I got to remember here, it's been a hot second. I think if we, okay, I think we have to lay it down over top. Yeah. So you would lay your transitions directly onto the clip. And this one is, the transitions in here are weird. I think we need to go, let's fade it up. Let's see here. Like I said, this one's a little funky sometimes. Let's still, let me reverse that and see what happens. So that's only fading in and out. So that one we wouldn't want to use there. There should be just a regular fade on this software. Here, let's just try something else. Let's do like a wipe. You know what I think this actually has to do? I think you have to have it up here. Let's try it this way. Let's see if that works. There it is. Okay, so for this software, you have to put, again, that hierarchy, you would put your clip up above that you want to transition to, and then just build that transition on top of the two, like that. On Premiere, that I'll show you in a second, you just put it all on the same track. Like I said, this isn't something I'm in every day, so so the other thing here would be titles. Let me switch back over to project files. So if we want to do a title, this has an option for animated titles. I haven't messed with that, but you could always play around with that. But it's got some like pre-made stuff in it. And so there's not going to be a whole lot of like, you're not going to have a whole lot of flexibility in what you want to create on your own. But we'll just go ahead and create something here real quick. So file name, let's just call it waterfall title. And then this is where we can add in some stuff. So we'll say, water, it's being slow, waterfalls of Tucker County. I guess maybe I should be teaching a science class right now, right? Talk about waterfalls. All right, it's being kind of slow there putting in. So if we leave it gold over, if we want the background color, let's see. I don't think we're going to be able to use over. Yeah, that's its function. So let's just do that. Save it. Notice it pops up here, and then we could drag that down. And maybe we'll put it here. We'll throw a fade on it. And we'll crossfade in between those two. So now if we play this from the beginning, we'll have the music start at the beginning too. Oh, I gotta reverse it, don't I? Is that what I gotta do? There it is. So you can see how it kind of started to fade out there. So again, if you have voiceover, you could always bring that in as into your project bin and include that down into another track. Now these tracks will do video and audio. I'm going to jump over to Premiere really quickly and show you that one. Again, if you plan to do a lot of this, it's worth the investment to go ahead and license that. Let me switch to here's Premiere, and I'm going to share this. So you can see this one looks a little bit different. This is obviously, though, a professional level editing software. I do teach a class on this. Every spring I teach an intro to video editing, and any of you who would be interested in sitting in on it, or coming in and just getting the first few weeks to figure out how to use it, I would be more than happy to accommodate you should I have enough space in the classroom. Usually I do. Okay, so I already brought this is the project bin here. This is actually going to be a source window. This is our timeline like before. You can see it's a little bit different. And then the program window. So again, if I want to kind of edit the same thing, let me find where my first clips. Where was? I don't have them named or anything. So if this is my first clip in this software, I can actually edit up here. Let's say I want to set an end point where I want it to start, set an out point. Maybe it's 5 seconds. And then I just drag that down to one of my video tracks. I actually have some stuff pre-built on here from another project. I'm going to ignore that right now. So then I have that on my video track. And then I could go through the same process that I did before and cut some footage. Now you'll notice I can just drag, if I want, I could drag video and audio. And there you can see there's audio and there's video. If I only want the audio or the video, I could just drag video only, like I did on the first clip. If I put this down here, I don't want it. All I have to do is unlink and get rid of it. And I know I'm kind of going through this really quickly, but just want to kind of give you a brief look at it. And let me put one more clip in. Lindy Point. Anybody ever been in Lindy Point? It's absolutely gorgeous. See, I want that. I'm just going to throw this down. Let me throw this one down too. And again, I'm just kind of quickly going through and grabbing stuff. I can change those lengths of clips very easily on my timeline, like so. If I want to overwrite something, I could just move it. If I move it out, this actually hasn't gone, it's overwritten. But you could always extend your clip like that too. And same thing as before, I'm just going to bring in that music. I think it was this one, right? Let's try. So I can preview the audio up here, or I could just click and drag it over. So that's that same audio. And let's say that I want to do, now the nice thing about Premiere is that it's really easy to put a graphic on, and all you do is click on this title tool. And let's say I want to put the graphic right here. I can click, and I'm going to call this, what I say was waterfalls. Let's see, waterfalls of Tucker County. That's that. And I can select all of it. And then this works kind of like if you're used to Microsoft Office, or if you've used any other Adobe products, you have all of your parameters that you can set over here. And let's just do, I'm just going to switch it to a couple things that I know will show up for this purpose. Bold, and I'm going to make it, here, we'll make it West Liberty Gold, so it's on brand. That's important. And we'll put a stroke on the outside of it so it pops a little bit. And let's say this is what we want. And maybe we want this to fade up. So I could go over to my effects, kind of like we saw in the other one. And I'm going to search, actually, I'll just go down to my video transitions, dissolve, and we could cross dissolve. Just drag it over and drop it, and cross dissolve out. So it can come on. One thing I'll mention before I open up to questions and stuff too is think about your music and the way that different beats hit. If you are putting together something that's like a short form demonstration thing, and you really want to try to make it exciting, you can kind of switch your shots on the beat. So for instance, on this one, so right where that little hit is, I'm going to back that up, and maybe I want my shot to switch on that. So if I go, you can see how the hit happens, or the change happens as the music hits. And again, that's just a nice way to kind of make your video a little more interesting. So, okay. There's a lot of stuff that you can do with Premiere. Again, it takes time to get used to. Same thing with the other software. It takes a lot of time to get used to that as well. But the best way to learn is to get in there, play around with it, find what works for you, what you're comfortable with. And again, I'm always happy to try to help you out the best I can whenever you need it. So, okay, I'll go ahead and open up to any questions that we might have for the last 9 minutes, looks like, if that's cool. We went through a lot. I apologize.
Jared, I actually do have a couple questions for you as I was watching. And I am an amateur video editor, so I.
Me too.
No, you have much more skills than I do. Is there anywhere set up on campus that if faculty does not have like a good space to record a video that they could go to and record?
Good question. So there is the TV studio over in the Media Arts Building. There's only a handful of classes that happen in there, so it is open a lot, and it is soundproof. You could set up. You probably need to bring your own equipment. The equipment that they have in there right now is all tied into a much bigger system that is very, one, it's older, and two, there's a lot of effort to like get it all running the way it should. But if you're looking for just a quiet space, someplace like that would be fine. But I do know, like where I'm located in Shaw, we have the wooden floors in the hallway, and you hear everyone that walks down the hallway, plus people talk and stuff in the hall. So it's not the best kind of spot for something like that. But yeah, I would say, somewhere like the TV studio, especially off hour, or, like if it's during the summer or something, that's a good time to utilize it.
Okay. My other question was, you mentioned that you teach a class
Yes.
doing video editing. Do the students pick their own projects for that? Because what I was wondering was if a faculty member wanted to record, say they knew they had 3 or 4 topics that they wanted to record like short videos on. If like the students accepted projects, if they wrote up something and said, I'd like to do this, if that might be something your students would be interested in doing during the class.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first part of the class is like the first half of the semester. I typically lecture on like the software and how to use it, and they do a few projects to help tie into that. And then the second half is a little more open, and they do select. I give them like a project guideline. So like one of them is a narrative project where they have to create like a how-to style video or some kind of like mini doc video. So yeah, if you do have a project that you would like help with, and you're willing to work with a student on it, it's every spring semester. And if you can wait until then to do something, I would definitely be willing to have my students work with you on that project for class credit.
Okay.
And I tend to do some independent studies with students who have gone through that class already, and they just want to do a little more advanced stuff. So I've done several independent studies with students who just need some upper level hours, and they'll work on projects for me, but I would be, that would be great for them to work on too. So definitely just let me know if you have something lined up that you need help with, and I can try to find some way to make it happen.
Okay, now we have 2 questions. One was, do you recommend an app for video recording on a phone?
As far as editing,
For recording.
no, I just use the simple camera on the phone. Just use your camera. Yep. There are apps out there that have some stuff built in them that you can enhance like the video with while you're recording. But I honestly haven't explored a whole lot of that as far as with the mobile devices. I do know there's some different software that you can edit within in your phone. That's not too bad. I think that's one of them's called InShot, maybe. I'll have to look up and see what they are. I don't have them on my phone because, like I said, I'm guilty of I just do everything on Premiere because I'm so used to it and have it available to me.
Okay, and is there an open? Is there anywhere on campus that has the Adobe stuff already installed that the faculty member could use? Do you know?
So the graphics lab that's in Fine Arts 111. It's the classroom that I teach the Adobe class in. The software is installed. However, you do have to have like an account to get on it. And I know for the students, they don't pay to use it. I think like there's with their network login info, IT sets them up so they can log into Adobe too. So I would check with our IT department and see if you can get maybe a username to access that, and that space is open.
What classroom was that again?
It's Fine Arts 111. So it's over in the Fine Arts, Media Arts. It's in the Media Arts wing. It's if you go in the front doors by the theater and make a left and go through the double doors, it's right over there.
Okay.
And I actually see real quick, I see that Dr. Barber asked that question, I believe, right? Dr. Barber, one of your students, Jaden Resnick, was just in my editing class last semester. And so that's what's kind of cool too, is there's a lot of this, like, I call it, it's digital literacy, right? Like it's learning how to do things digitally. And so I have some cross-curriculum students that come into my editing class. They're in business, they're in ZooSci. I've had education students just because it's a good skill to know. So
the other question we have here is there any equipment available on campus that somebody could borrow?
So in the media arts building, I know they have some really old cameras for students and stuff. I'm going to go ahead and just say I don't think there would be a good place to borrow any equipment on campus. Again, you might ask IT and see if they maybe have, some mics or lights or something that might help you. But yeah, I don't think there is a good place on campus to borrow stuff, unfortunately. But I mean, I don't know, maybe that could be something, if certain departments, if you have enough people in your department who would be needing this stuff, perhaps that could be, you could have funding allocated to purchase some equipment and have just in your college.
Mhm. Now, I know that we tell faculty developers when they're developing online courses that we recommend your average video be like 5 to 7 minutes, because that's kind of the attention span for most people watching a video before they start to daze off, go on to something else. Is that what you're still seeing? I mean, I think short videos are the best rather than, trying to do an hour-long video on something.
Absolutely. Yeah. Shorter videos are going to be more impactful with your students. And it's kind of hard to say a certain amount of time, but I think that 5-minute mark, anything longer than that, it is going to be hard to keep their attention. And a lot of it, like I said, it depends on what your goal is with the video. I mean, if you're wanting to teach an entire lecture on the Civil War, you're probably going to need a longer period of time to do it. But the other thing that you could do is break it up into smaller pieces.
Right. And that's
And
what we
have
tell
that.
people. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you have a lot of content, if you can kind of compartmentalize into different areas and break it down into something that's going to be more simple with a higher volume of videos to watch, I think that's probably the better way to go for it.
Yeah. And I did want to mention one other thing is that once you do the great video following Jared's advice, we still have the accessibility consideration that, if you're going to put it in an online class, we have to make sure that video is accessible. So you would still have to take that video, put it on YouTube, because unfortunately we cannot use Topper Station. Topper Station is not accessible.
Right.
You can't get a transcript on Topper Station. So, that's why we use YouTube, upload it to YouTube. They'll do the, auto caption thing for it. And then we can then put that in your online class.
Absolutely. And I will say, yeah, the YouTube, I use the auto caption for all of our marketing videos. I make sure that they're all accessible as well. And by the way, we have a great YouTube channel. I'm going to put a plug in for it. Search West Liberty University on YouTube. You'll see a lot of good stuff there. A lot of videos from your programs are live on our YouTube channel. But yeah, that's a good point. When you do finish your video, that's a good place to put it and host it. I do know that they like to have people use Topper Station for some of the class videos, but something like this that you're going to send out to students, if you put it on YouTube, you can set it as a private video or an unlisted video, so that way not everybody can see it, only people who have the link can see it. And that's
we tell them to use unlisted, so that way somebody in the class doesn't have to worry about a password, but your average person searching YouTube won't be able to see the videos. So.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. Well, does anybody have any other questions for Jared at this time? It was great information. We thank you very much.
Yeah, you're so welcome. I hope I didn't go over too much.
No.